Well, good afternoon, and I want to thank everybody for coming out today to welcome the crew of Discovery home from Discovery's last mission. I want to recognize a few of our guests here today. We have Damon Maddox, who's a district director from Representative Sheila Jackson Lee's office. Damon. Mark Henry, Galveston County Judge. Mark. Terry Goodman, District Director from Representative Larry Taylor's office. Kelly Waterman, Councilman Mike Sullivan's office. Kelly. Sue Allen, who's a Community Liaison for County Commissioner Jack Mormon's office. Miss Lisa Carnes, her first and second grade class from Opie Elementary School in Galveston are here. Say, children Opie Elementary, did I pronounce that right? Welcome. I want to start off by saying a few words. You know, I had the privilege myself of flying the very first flight of Discovery 27 years ago, so I had the opportunity to meet a lot of the folks that built Discovery out of Palmdale. We made several trips out there, so I got to meet those folks. I've been very privileged to not only met the people who built Discovery, but of course met the folks down at the Kennedy Space Center who have turned her around between her 39 missions, the most missions of any orbiter, as well as, of course, the people here at the Johnson Space Center who operate Discovery during the missions. You know, we convinced the crew, it didn't take much convincing, to stay up there an extra couple days. Coincidentally, that meant that Discovery, in its total lifetime, spent 365 days in orbit. And flew more than 148 million miles, more than any other spacecraft ever has. I want to also thank the team. You know, we tried to launch Discovery in November. We found some cracks on the external tank, and I can't say enough about the professional job that all of the engineers at NASA did determining what was the root cause of those cracks and coming up with a fix. It's just the most professional job I can imagine. Nobody was anxious to go fly, even though we had a good fix in place until we understand the root cause. And that's the way the space program should work. So I'd like to congratulate Bill Gerstenmaier, John Shannon, and virtually all the folks that worked on the shuttle program for a terrific job for the last few months, making sure this spacecraft was as safe as we could make it. Well done out there. I want to thank the families of the crew members. It's hard when a crew member is gone for an extended period of time, and it's not just the time that they're up in space, they go into quarantine early, and the last few months of training are jam-packed, so they're not at home very much, and it takes an awful lot of understanding and patience on the part of the families, and I want to thank them as well. I want to thank the crew for bringing back a virtually perfect spacecraft on a virtually perfect mission. Seems a shame to put it in a museum right now, doesn't it? But I want to thank Steve. I'm going to turn it over to the commander, Steve Lindsay. I will point out from a very selfish point of view, the last time Steve launched Discovery as commander was 5 years ago on the 4th of July. And I was very grateful that he launched that day because my two granddaughters were born that day. And I really wanted to get home and see those babies. You did a nice job. He cut it a little close this time. We had 2 seconds to go in the window when we launched, which is about as somebody, I think Mike Moses said, we had a second to spare, but that's cutting it pretty close down there. So with that, from one of the crew members on the first Discovery flight, I'd like to turn it over to the crew member on the last Discovery flight. Steve?
Thank you. Well, thank you, and thank you to everybody for coming out here today to support us, our return. It's wonderful to be back in Houston. We had it was just a great flight. I saw an email from John McCullough, who's the lead flight director, head of the flight director office, and email. I was just looking through a couple this morning, and he said he calculated that we completed 118% of our mission objectives, which is pretty good in my book. So we're grateful for the extra couple dock days. We were happy to be able to do the extra work on a space station to get it ready so we could do more science and research with it. What we'd like to do today is thank a lot of folks. We might be the visible part of this, but it takes a huge team to put all this together, and a lot of you are out there today. Mike already talked about Discovery, the most historic of all the vehicles, I think, with 39 trips into space. Launched the Hubble Space Telescope, 13 trips to the space station, went to the Mir space station, flew 3 return-to-flight test missions after both the Challenger and the Columbia accidents. And literally, when from launch to landing, we landed a vehicle that had absolutely nothing wrong with it. Every single system and backup system was working perfectly. And if you think about a vehicle that's 26, 27 years old, that is just a remarkable achievement. And it's a testimony to not only the people that maintain it and take care of it at Kennedy Space Center, but it's testimony to all of you who operate that vehicle. And so our applause goes out to you for that, because you guys made it happen. So thank you very much. I would first like to thank our families, all of our families, for putting up with us. Mike mentioned the training. Probably the hardest part, though, was slipping in November after spending a week or two down in Florida and waiting and waiting and waiting and retraining and retraining. We appreciate you. We love you. We appreciate your support, and it couldn't have happened without you. And we know who has the harder job, and it's not us. So thank you very much to all of you. A couple other individuals I want to recognize. First of all, the space station crew that's up there, Expedition 26, did a phenomenal job. What's really unique about a space station mission is you go up there, you take a shuttle team, you take a space station team, you put them together and you become one crew for about 7 days. And when you become a team like that, you can get a lot done. And they were a pleasure to work with. They enabled us. They put up with us trashing their space station, like having 6 relatives living in your house for 2 weeks. It can't be very fun. But they put up with us, and we appreciate all of them. I'd also like to recognize Tim Copra, who unfortunately got injured, and we had to replace him with Steve Bowen, who did a fantastic job. But Tim set us up to be successful from a crew standpoint by developing our EVAs, helping out our flight crew on the flight deck, and making it all possible so that Steve could step in and take over. So I'd like to also thank Tim for that. Mike also mentioned the Space Shuttle program. They've been terrific through this whole thing. A lot of you are out here today. All of your hard work and effort that went into this, staying disciplined when we had the tank problems, not getting launch fever, working the problem technically and pounding it flat and giving us a safe tank and a safe vehicle. Gosh, my hats go out to you. All the way through it, it was such a professional operation that it really made me proud to be a part of this program. So thanks to all of you. Also, I want to mention the flight directors. Let's see, we got Royce Renfrew down here. Royce, stand up. Brian Lundy was our shuttle lead flight director, and I don't think he's here today, but Royce is back, and Royce was our ISS lead flight director and did a terrific job through all the changes, kept disciplined. I know we worked you guys to death, but just so you know, you worked us to death too, so it's only fair. But you did a fantastic job. The flight control teams were terrific. The flight directors on the shuttle side, Brian Lundy, Ginger Carrick, Rick LeBrode, Richard Jones for Ascent, Tony Sakachi for Entry, Paul Dye, Team 4, ISS flight directors, Royce is the lead, Dave Korth, Chris Edelon, Kwatsi Alabahuro and Mike Lammers, who the increment lead. All of you guys and the teams you represent, you made it happen. You're the reason we're successful, so thank you very much. And I probably talked enough, so I'd like to each crew member just say a few words. And I'm going to hand the mic off to Eric Boehm, my pilot. And Eric did a terrific job. I worked really hard, studied really hard just to keep up with him. He did a terrific job on the fly around. He backed me up in rendezvous, kept me out of trouble, and in particular, really backed me up yesterday under some pretty challenging landing conditions. Eric is just a superstar. He did a great job, and I was really proud to fly with him. And let me say one thing about the whole crew. I don't think a crew could have executed a mission more perfectly than these folks right here. They were pretty much flawless throughout the flight, and to all of you guys, it was a privilege to serve with you and an honor to serve with you, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat if I could, but I don't think you're going to let me. So with that, I'd like to hand the mic over to Eric for a few words.
Well, thanks, Stephen. It's really great to be out here at Ellington with the JSC team. Good to see everyone. You picked out a good day for us to come back. Beautiful outside. First, I'd like to thank my family, my wife, Kristen, Maddie, and Tony. And then I'd like to thank our PMM team, the cargo that we were carrying in our payload bay that's going to help the space station so much. I'd like to thank some of those individuals. I'd like to thank Stephen Tripodi, Pam Martin, and Vincent LaCourte. We have Betty Lynn and Dara. I think I saw Dara over there. Tricia, Ursula, Eric, and Jason for the great work that they did with the PMM. And the rest of the team that made it possible for us to attach the PMM onto the space station and make it happen. We got it on there right on time. It worked out very well. I'd also like to thank the Rendezvous team, Alan Fox, Sarah Ruiz, and Joe Lynn for making all that happen for the undock and Rendezvous. I'm saying the undock first because that's what I got to do, the important part. And then, of course, Rendezvous, which occurred first with Steve. And obviously, it's a whole team effort with us as the crew and everyone else on board and all the rest of the Rendezvous team that made it happen. And I'd also like to thank all the AOD folks for the T-38s that you see in here, our shuttle training aircraft that we use to practice for landings, and all the other people that are involved in making the aviation part happen so that we can be ready to go out and fly. I just wanted to tell one quick story about what it was like to be in space. And for me, I kind of already talked about a little bit, was the undock and fly ground. I mean, Discovery, a flawless ship on this flight, truly amazing. And then on the undock, one of the things that you really can't capture in the video, and you can't capture in the simulator, is just the deep bass sound of the jets when they're firing, when you're on your control center. Just makes a really impressive sound, and the vehicle flies so crisply. And of course, we're flying away from the space station, which is the biggest volume of air we've seen that inside the space station. It's the biggest it's been yet, and hopefully everyone here is extremely proud of what we put together with the international partners. The machine is just amazing, both Discovery and Discovery is a large part of making the space station. And of course, you have the awe-inspiring view. Pictures really don't do it justice. I mean, they're amazing pictures when you see them from around, but up in space, it's just truly amazing. I'd like to introduce our newest spacewalker with 2 spacewalks, and rode up and down on the flight deck, Alvin Drew.
Thanks, Eric. To continue that, I'd like to recognize a few folks who are part of this team that made this mission happen. Like Steve alluded to, we're the crew is the visible part of this whole thing, but there's many people who are here in this hangar and everywhere else who make this mission happen. And one of the dirty little secrets we have about spaceflight and being an astronaut is most of what we do, except for the few weeks we spend in space, is to pretend to be astronauts in space. The euphemism we call that is training around here. And I'd like to recognize the folks who do the training here at Johnson Space Center with us. First and foremost, our shuttle training team. These are the folks who work our mission computers, our life support systems, electricity, everything else. And their job is to break as many things as they can during these simulation runs so we get a chance to be familiar with the systems. Fortunately, the shuttle flies a whole lot better than these simulated shuttles. Usually 4 or 5 things are broken before we clear the launch pad in our simulation runs, and they make things challenging. The good part is, during our mission, like I said, our shuttle didn't behave at all like that, and we didn't get too much interface, so I wouldn't call it a waste, but it was there in case we needed it. 2 systems we did have to use in orbit, and it wasn't because they were broken, but because it was the plan, was our shuttle robotic arm, and we had lots of good training from our shuttle robotic arm team, and using our spacesuits out there on the spacewalk. We had a great team training us on how to use those spacesuits and how to do the different spacewalks that were out there. My hat's off to all of you. Just a great job. Job well done. Behind our group of trainers are the people who make that make-pretend world, the people who do our simulations. We have a Building 5, we call it, where we have our shuttle simulators. We have a dome simulator for working the robot arms. And we have a virtual reality lab in which we put goggles on it. And for me, that was most incredible. When I went out the door on my first spacewalk, it really looked just like what it looked like in the virtual reality lab. It just shows these guys have way too much time on their hands to create a realistic environment. Finally, we have the neutral buoyancy lab, which is an underwater pool about the size of a football field and 40 feet deep. And if you're a diver, it's the ultimate wreck dive, a one-to-one mock-up of the space station and the shuttle, where we go out in our spacesuits and practice walking out there. And things I thought were just oddities of the pool turned out to be things that happened to me in space as well. They did a very good job of mocking up what it would feel like to be in space, even if it wasn't exactly what it would look like to be in space. Next, I'd like to recognize the folks who do all of our checklists. Anybody who flies knows you don't leave the chocks without your checklists. And we in the shuttle, we leave the chocks with a library of checklists. They make different checklists for each one of our missions, tailored specifically to us. So I think as an aviator, I used to get my checklists off the rack. Here I get them tailor-made to fit us, and they did a fantastic job of fitting those checklists to us and our mission. My hat's off to those of you, even though you had to move your offices right in the middle of the whole thing, which made it tough to find you. I wonder if that was intentional during the mission. Anyhow, all those came together. Our trainers, the people who made our virtual world, and the folks who gave us our checklist, all came together and gave us a flawless mission, and thank you for doing that, all of you. Now I'm going to introduce Steve Bowen, our newest member of the team. Mission Specialist 2, and was my partner in crime for 2 spacewalks, and helped get us all unsuited and suited on entry day, on launch day, and re-entry day. Thanks, Steve.
Well, I was looking at this flight from the outside, and quite unexpectedly, you know, we discussed these issues, especially on the EVA side. I was working in the EVA branch at the time. There were a number of issues that were starting to come up, and suddenly I was involved. I was a part of this team, part of this incredible team that was putting this together. It was amazing watching it from both sides, because you don't always get to appreciate necessarily when you're in it. You know, everything else that goes on around it, all the people working real hard over an XA, making sure our suits are right. We had a problem with one of our suits. They swapped out suits out there on the launch pad very quickly after a failure, and they worked real hard to make sure everything worked. And so we went out the door, and you know, things really performed flawlessly for us on those EVAs. So really the engineering teams, the training teams for EVA. I see Devin sitting right here. I can't see beyond the first row, so I apologize, you know, for everybody else that's out there. But you know, really appreciate the hard work that everybody puts in. And then also, it's one of the other things that's really hard to explain is scheduling. I think sometimes when you've only owned a piece of the schedule, you often wonder why things don't work. Well, when you get thrown in at the last minute and you have to meet all these requirements, Dale did an incredible job assembling this and allowing these guys to train and then retrain and stay proficient. And then in order to make it even more difficult for him, they threw me in at the end and just doubled his work. But we managed to do it. He did an incredible job putting it together. And you know, once again, it's one of those things you don't necessarily see when you're in it. You put in your input to Dale, and out comes the schedule. Well, then if you've been working from the other side and you make a request, it's a little more complicated. So when it all comes together, it's amazing. And then as far as the crew secretary, Suzanne Singleton, it was doubly so, because she had to deal with all the issues that this crew secretary has to put together, and she managed to do all that in a very compressed time. And finally, I have to thank my family out here, because I think we managed to compress in 6 weeks an entire year of stress. And I think about 4 o'clock this morning is the first time any of the 5 of them, the other 4 of them, not counting the dogs, actually managed to sleep. So it was just an incredible experience, and you all put together an incredible team. It's an honor to work with these guys and Nicole. It was just great. And I told Tim that it would have been incredible to train as a team of 7 with this crew. Tim, as I have said often, he had put a plan together. This crew had put a plan together. All I had to do was execute what they'd already done. So that part of the task was easy. And well, except I have to introduce Mike now. So Mike and I shared in-flight movies up and down on the mid-deck, and then there was a time he got me stuck out on the arm holding 800 pounds of front module. It seems easy. They say it doesn't weigh anything. But he incredibly, they got the cupola robotics workstation shut down, moved to the lab, got us out of there, and we managed to complete the entire EVA. And my hats off to Mike and everybody else that managed to pull that off. And so here's Mike Barrett. Thanks.
Thanks. Like Steve, I have to say first that this crew has just been incredible to train with. It's worth noting that we had to pull the chief of the astronaut office out of service to herd this group of cats here. But Purdy did. He is a very good commanderly touch, a very good organizer, very good leader, leads democratically without saying a word. You kind of know what to do, and the team did great. I also have to thank my family. 4 of my 5 children are here. Angela, Mita, Prasad, Anthony, Joey, and absentia. My wife, Michelle, in 2 weeks, I will have been married to this girl for 30 years. So I love you, and thanks for letting me do this. Otherwise, there's a lot of people here, our instructors and various others who prepared us. And I think everybody understands that to take a space shuttle, one of the 3 that we have on this planet, out for a spin and to go to the International Space Station, an incredibly capable, magnificent international asset. It's not a light thing. It's a sacred trust to us. And we definitely got the idea that it's a sacred trust to all of you in preparing us. So I want to recognize some of the folks that helped us to get ready to do this and execute our mission and not screw anything up. First, the robotics team. I see Melanie Miller over here doing what she does best, which is shepherding children, and that's kind of a lot of what she did with us. Robotics was a huge part of this mission. A lot of the complicated things we did involved 1, if not 2 of our robotics arms, and I got to do a lot of that along with Nicole Studd and some of our station guys. It's a very complex machine. The tolerances are tight. There's 100 ways to screw it up. And fortunately, we didn't do that, and it's largely because of almost 99% of how these guys prepared us, prepared the arm, prepared everything. Jared Olson, my instructor, there he is. He has the most gentle way of telling you that you're screwing up and getting you back on track. Misses nothing. I think Will is over there, Richardson Little, David Link. You guys just did a fantastic job of putting one of the most complicated robotics packages together, and I salute you for that. For the network guys, the network is kind of our lifeblood on orbit, and Gary Rowan and Brad Evans, you guys got us set up, and we put that together, and it served us incredibly well. The flight docs. Phil Stepaniak was our lead flight doc. He has more missions than any other flight surgeon on the planet. I think he's shepherded 28 or 29 crews safely to orbit and back again, and prepared us and took care of us in orbit. Ed Powers, who trained with me in the aerospace medicine program at Wright State, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base many years ago. We had the hand-pick of the best, and you're all a great group as well. So we're really fortunate for that. And our suit techs, I don't know if they're here, George Bidingham and his team. Your flight crew equipment is your life. It's your survival. They took incredibly good care of that. And Frank, how are you? My crewmate from Expedition 19 rather. 20, actually. Nikki and I landed from our long-duration missions assigned to this flight, so everything's kind of running together for us. But anyway, thanks to our suit techs and flight crew equipment guys. You guys really made our lives safer, you made our mission better, and hats off to you. I want to introduce Nicole Stott. As mentioned, Nicole and I were flying together for a lot of Expedition 20, and she is the quintessential steely-eyed missile woman when she's not cracking you up. She does her job incredibly, one of the most meticulous individuals I know. If you want something done right, ask Nikki to do it. And just a pleasure to fly with, as anybody I think who knows her will attest to. So, Nikki.
Thanks, Mike. I'll pay you later. Well, it really is great to be back here, but I also have to say that it was great to have the chance to go back to space. I feel really blessed to have had that opportunity to go back, fly again on Discovery, and spend some more time on the space station. It is an incredible place. Discovery is an incredible spacecraft. And the space station is bigger, I think better and more beautiful than when we left it before. It's hard to describe, you know, the feeling you have when you get back there, but one of the things that stands out to me was just how familiar it felt, how comfortable it felt to be back there. It's like one of those places that you're so familiar with that you feel like you've never left when you get back there, and that's what it was like for me, and I think for some of the others here as well. And I think the reason that happens, in large part, is to the training we get from our ISS training teams, as well as our crew systems people who really help us know how to live and work up there. And so our hats are off to them, because it's those day-to-day things that could really bog you down if you didn't know how to deal with them before you got there. Also, staying organized up there is a big thing. Things float away from you if you don't attach them to their Velcro. If you don't pay attention to the tiniest little thing, it can ruin your day if you are trying to get something done. And one of the biggest ways we stay organized is through our transfer team and our stowage team. I see Liz back there, and I think I saw Tracy over here, and Gary, and that whole team that somehow managed to choreograph this plan that just works beautifully. And of course, as beautiful as it is, we always seem to barrage them with these endless questions that they just come back very responsively and answer us. And if we would have just read it correctly the first time, we would know that they were already telling us how to do it. So thanks to them. On top of that, I think the flight directors were already mentioned, the control team, but we also have our Capcoms, and I think I saw Megan over there, and for our on-orbit operations, where we're just needing to keep pace and sometimes needing to have that comfort of knowing someone is on the ground taking care of us as well. It's good to know that voice that's coming up to us really does know what's going on with our mission and can answer whatever we need to help keep us going. One of the things that was mentioned too is how beautiful it is to just look out those windows. You can't describe it, and to have the opportunity to try and capture that. We'd like to thank our photo TV people, Gary and Raul, who were very patient with us going through all of the systems and the different cameras and lenses and how to capture the best image so that we can try to share the memories that we have from up there with all of you. And also part of that, I see Ken Fisher over here, who helped implement the means for us to downlink high definition images to the ground, and we are extremely thankful for that opportunity as well. The robotics teams and the EVA teams were already mentioned, but I'd also like to say my thanks to those guys. It was a thrill to work both of those systems. To have the chance to really and truly be assigned the boss of Al and Steve, have them doing what I told them when I told them, it was a really wonderful feeling. And I say thanks to the EVA team for spending all those hours sitting with me along that console at the MBL, getting ready to do that, because I think it really paid off. And for the robotics as well, the opportunity to work robotics, fly that big arm, that big station arm out of the cupola, it's almost indescribable how beautiful, and on the other hand, how beneficial it is to have that just horizon to horizon view for those operations. So thanks to the robotics team, and thanks to the designers who decided to put that big window up there for us. And I'll wrap up by saying thanks to my family, to Chris and Roman, for just giving me the kind of support that allows me to be a part of a crew like this and a part of this mission. It's really means a lot. I love you guys. And thanks to all of you for coming out, continuing to come out and support us. We couldn't do it without you.
I'd like to thank everybody again for coming out. I want to thank Alpi Elementary School from Galveston for making a special trip up here. I'd like to remind everybody we still have 2 more shuttle missions, 1 more mission on Endeavour launching next month, and the last mission of Atlantis launching in June. But as we said, this was the last mission for Discovery, and as Nicole said quite eloquently, it was an amazing, incredible spaceship up there. It takes the work of thousands of people on a very dedicated team to make 39 successful missions as well as 39 outstanding crews. And I want to congratulate this crew for finishing off. As Steve said coming in, it's nice to go out on top, and you're going out on top. Well done. The crew has agreed to stay for a while and sign autographs, so they're going to join you out there in just a second. While they're signing autographs, we have a Grammy award-winning band, Riders in the Sky, that are going to perform while the crew's out here signing autographs. The band recorded the Randy Newman penned song, Woody's Roundup, from the Toy Story 2 soundtrack, which was played last Saturday as the wake-up music while the crew was up in space. So I'm looking forward to that. So once again, I want to thank everybody for coming out here today and to congratulate a wonderful team on a wonderful career for the Space Shuttle Discovery. Thank you.